Hello, everyone. We're right here at the top of the hour. You're listening to WZMB 91.3. My name is Bryce, and this is my show, It's a Bee Thing. Hey, trying out some sound effects today. All right, you're tuned in here with me on this very fine Friday. I haven't been outside in a couple hours because I've been here at the studio. I hope it got warmer out. If it's still cold, hope you guys are feeling very cozy. I busted out one of my favorite pieces of clothing, my Sherpa jackets. I have two. One of them is bright green, and the other one is gray with koi fish on it. It's the Taylor Swift Speak Now Sherpa. Yes, I am a Swiftie if you haven't tuned in before, but I contain multitudes. I like a lot of things. This week I've got a pretty fun show for y'all. I'm going to talk about self-confidence and building it and like keeping it and just my thoughts on it because it's something that I feel like follows me around a lot. We'll talk about that. I'll explain that a little bit more when we get back to it. Let's listen to some music really quickly. I'll come back to y'all with some thoughts. We're going to have a couple quotes from a few books that people around me and I have read that I want to share with y'all. We're just going to give my wisdom. You know, I love my soapbox. So let's listen to It's Fall Out Boy Fall. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about to be Halloween. So I've got the acoustic version of Thanks for the Memories for y'all. Listen, I'm working on getting some more Fall Out Boy. Okay, so hopefully next week I'll play you a few more. But let's listen to this, all right? Enjoy.
Want it to be true.
All right, that was Paramore with Decode, the acoustic version. If you don't know, that's a song originally written for the Twilight soundtrack. Now sue me, but I don't know which movie. I am actually about to read the Twilight books for the very first time, and I'm so excited. They slipped through the cracks on me, honestly. Like, I just never read them. But I'm, like, working my way back through some of the classics. I read The Hunger Games all the way through a few years ago. I got them all, like, for, like, 50 cents at a book sale, and, I mean, they're wonderful. They're amazing, obviously. So I'm so excited to read Twilight. I also have only seen the first movie and the last movie, which I know is actually blasphemous, but I promise I'm going to rewatch all of them. Like, maybe after I read the books. There's such, like, fall core. Like, I love that. In other news, before we start on our topics, talking about music, talking about Fall Out Boy Fall, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is the beginning of When We Were Young Fest. All right, and if you have lived under a rock or just don't listen to the type of music that I listen to and are, you know, stuck in 2010s, in the emo era, then you might not know, but When We Were Young Fest is a music festival that started my senior year of high school, I believe, because I actually literally got tickets my senior year, and because I was just like praying that I'd be able to go. I could not go. I was a senior in high school. There was no way I could get to Las Vegas on my own. But it is my dream to go to this festival. It takes place obviously in Las Vegas. And it is all about like OG punk era, like punk bands, 90s and early 2000s and 2010s. So literally, I'm looking at one of the posters right now. We got MCR, you got Paramore, you got Bring Me the Horizon, Day to Remember, Avril Lavigne, Jimmy Eat World. Hold on, I Prevail. Okay, Green Day, Blink-182, Simple Plan. One of my dreams is to see Simple Plan. 5 Seconds of Summer was there. All Time Low. Did I say that already? Bowling for Soup. If you don't know who Bowling for Soup is, they wrote the theme song for Phineas and Ferb. So back like in the early 2000s, lots of pop punk bands were doing like music for TV shows. So the reason why I'm obsessed with Simple Plan is because they did all the music for Scooby-Doo when I was growing up. And yeah, I'm obsessed with Simple Plan. They also went on a tour with Avril Lavigne like 2 years ago, and I wanted to go so bad because they're my icons. This year, y'all are not ready for this. I'm going to pull up this year's lineup for you guys. This year's a good one. Okay. Here's what we have. It's October, 18th through the 19th or 20th. I can't remember. And the headliners, Panic at the Disco. And ladies and gentlemen, if you did not know, Panic at the Disco has not played in many, many years. Obviously, so if y'all know the OG band, used to be multiple members, including this guy named Ryan Ross, including Brendan Urie, who we all know. Yeah, y'all know him. Hey, kids, spelling is fun. And he's a little bit interesting. He kind of injured his voice throughout the years, you know. High hopes for a living, all that. That's Panic at the Disco. And, well, we have not had a Panic at the Disco tour, honeys, in many years. I believe Brendan Urie did go on like a comeback tour in 2023 or 2022. 2022, actually, when I first saw MCR, I remember seeing this. And so he did, play some of really his songs, but it was not Panic at the Disco. We have not seen Panic at the Disco in a very long time, ladies and gentlemen. Especially not maybe the OG fan favorite albums. And so what is expected of this set and what we have heard from like current like sound checks that he has done. Now, I don't really think I believe that the band is going to get back together for this music festival. That's that's a dream, but it's a far-fetched dream. Okay. But he has been sound checking things from Pretty Odd. He has sound checked things from, excuse me while I try not to mess up this name. But Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. Oh, freaking classic. Pretty Odd is obviously like the fan favorite Panic at the Disco album. If I'm honest, it's like their original era. The girlies are obsessed, and I am the girlies, and I have been obsessed with this album since I was like 12. So he's been sound checking like some of their best songs. Oh, and I'm so jealous. This festival every year is freaking emo like history. It's like one of the only places where My Chemical Romance has played my favorite song of all time, Fake Your Death. They played it in an encore 2 years ago, and that's the only time they've like ever played it was for this festival that I almost had tickets to. So y'all know that this festival every year, it haunts me. It really does haunt me. This year, it's Panic at the Disco, Blink-182, Weezer, Avril Lavigne, All Time Low. Love some All Time Low. Simple Plan, Yellow Card, Bad Religion. There's even more than what I'm saying, but Taking Back Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Taking Back Sunday. If y'all know, you know. I Prevail Again, Mayday Parade. Like, it's iconic. It's iconic. And if y'all know, like, the last couple of weeks have been pretty huge for the emos. Okay, currently we have Pierce the Veil on tour. Sleeping in Sirens was on tour, but unfortunately they had pushed it back because the lead singer's wife is currently, unfortunately, very sick, so they are, helping to take care of her. I really hope she gets better soon. But Sleeping in Sirens was on tour. MCR on tour. Pierce the Veil on tour. Panic at the Disco revival. A few days ago in online social media news, you may have seen that Dan and Phil, I was not an original Dan and Philler, but all my friends were, so I'm in. Trust me. I remember. I was there for the Tumblr era. I've been there since day one. Confirmed that they have been together for the last 16 years. They made this beautiful video about their love story. And so there's been a lot of talk online recently about what does this mean, like, for pop culture? What's going to happen? If you guys didn't exist on Tumblr in, like, the 2010s, you might not know about this, but there's this thing called, we call it, I'm doing air quotes here, no, but imagine if. And basically it was this person who did a text post saying like, no, but imagine if you went like to a concert and My Chemical Romance comes out and then Brendan Urie brings out the rest of Panic at the Disco and then Pierce the Veil comes out and Fall Out Boy comes out and they all get on the stage together and they sing. Oh yeah, Fall Out Boy was on tour recently as well, by the way. And basically it's being like, oh my God, like idolizing the era of the early 2000s when all these bands were on tour and it was actually affordable to see them. And what if it happened and everyone came out on stage and they were in love and and just very funny teenage social media stuff. So people online recently have been kind of losing their minds over this When We Were Young Fest. So all eyes are on that this week. Wish I was there, truly. Wish I could hear these Pierce the Veil songs, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, it's tomorrow and Sunday in Las Vegas. And they do a full like lineup of every single band each day. And they have like 3 or 4 stages. Plain White Tees is going to be there. Like, it's We the Kings, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. Paris, okay? It's iconic, to say the absolute least. So I'm going to be watching over this weekend. I cannot wait to see what they play. I've got some sort of inspired songs lined up to listen to pretend like we are there. So let's listen to another one. I just had to update you guys on the crazy music news that are happening in my world right now. And if you are going to When We Were Young Fest, if you've been to When We Were Young Fest, please send me some videos, send me some pictures, all right? I am obsessed. Let's listen to some Panic at the Disco to get in the mood. I've got another acoustic. I'm enjoying these acoustic versions of classic songs. What can I say? I've got the Ballad of Mona Lisa. This is a classic. If you haven't heard it before, please enjoy. Let's go. What a classic. I hope y'all enjoy it. It's great. All versions of that song are great. And I will say this. One last thing on my Panic! At the Disco grind is that apparently from the soundtracks that we have heard this week, Brendan Urie's voice is in a much better place than it was when he stopped touring a few years ago. Unfortunately, he did very much damage his voice over the years of just not singing healthily, which, as y'all know or may not know, I'm a vocal performance minor and an acting student, so basically have to take a ton of classes on vocal health because even just talking incorrectly can cause you to damage your voice. And for instance, if you find yourself losing your voice extremely often or regularly, including even when you're not sick or the second you get sick, you lose your voice, that might be because, the way that you're speaking or the way that you're using your voice day to day is actually causing prolonged strain and damage on your vocal cords. For instance, right now, I'm not speaking in my natural pitch, which would probably be a bit more down here if you can tell the difference. And me speaking in this pitch allows me to have a more supportive voice, and I can change between my lighter voice and my natural voice, and then I won't lose my voice as much. So, yeah, little things like that you learn, but it sounds like he sounds really good, so I'm excited for all the videos to come out. All right, let's pivot gears a little bit. Let's talk about what I came here to talk about. Self-confidence. Now, how this idea came to me, it was in a vision. So, unfortunately, I don't fully remember how I plan to introduce this topic to you guys, so I apologize because I had planned something really poetic to say, but we're just really going to jump into it here. Essentially, I feel like this topic has kind of been surrounding me this semester, where I've shared a few times where people, and strangers especially, will come over to me and be like, oh my gosh, I just can't believe that you're so confident, or that you have pink hair and you dress so da-da-da-da in the way you want and you wear makeup, and I just could never do that, and it's just so cool. And so many, I've had many experiences like that this year, and every time I'm pretty struck because for me, I'm just being myself. I'm just doing my thing. It's not even conscious. For me, there's no other option. It's not a thought. It's not me choosing to be confident. This is just who I am. So it's for me, it's not a choice. So I get very confused when people talk to me about it, and I'm like, dang, I wish everybody could just kind of say screw it and not give themselves the choice and just be themselves. Imagine how much happier we'd all be. Imagine how much cooler everybody would be. And so I thought that it would be kind of fun to do a show surrounding that, and my thoughts on it, and maybe it will inspire somebody in some way who might maybe have said those things to me before, or just be thinking them about other people that they see, out and about. Let me get some water. Sorry, guys. So I want to read a few quotes and use them to build off of for you guys. Y'all know I like to yap, but we're going to try to keep it balanced because I do have a lot of music I want to show you today. So these are from a woman named Mel Robbins. And Mel Robbins is a psychologist and therapist who works at the UVA up in Virginia. And she actually specifically specializes, she does not work at UVA. That is someone who she partners with. Let me get this right for you guys. But she is a psychologist and a writer. And she wrote multiple books that have went viral online. So she is from, let me get this right for you guys. Yes, she lives in Vermont. Here you go. I'm correcting myself. So yes, and her studio is located, that she owns, is located in Boston, Massachusetts. And basically her whole deal is writing these books and creating podcasts and YouTube videos and blog posts that help to motivate people in difficult times in their life. And a lot of this is that transitory age of your 20s and 30s. But she does make it clear that this is information that is useful to people of any ages. It's obviously just more helpful had you learn it, sooner rather than later. There's different things that you might have to do to learn this at a later age than if you start now. So a few of my friends our age, and including my parents, have actually started doing this now, and I've joined in. And I like to watch her podcast. I've talked about that a couple times. It's an easy way if you're driving. I listen when I'm walking to class or getting ready in the morning. And they're very easy to understand, very simple. She's got them on YouTube and most streaming sites. And she'll explain through interviews and just short comments and quotes the things that she talks about in her books. So a few of her books are The 5-Second Rule, which is about transforming your life, work, and confidence with everyday courage. Motivation. They're all motivational books. She says, Stop Saying You're Fine. That's her other book. And then her most recent, which is very famous, which she actually wrote in tandem with her daughter, which I just think is very cool. I think, so basically her daughter gave her the idea and they decided to write this book together, is called The Let Them Theory. And it revolves around this idea of separating yourself from other people and adopting a philosophy essentially called let them. Anytime someone does anything, you just let them. That's basically what the book says. And throughout a bunch of chapters of applying this to different situations, it's attempting to teach you how to do that, how to release an attempt of control over outside circumstances, and how to stop applying that control onto yourself. So I'm going to read one of the quotes I think explains that really well, and also will build onto our idea of like self-confidence for today. This is from the Let Them theory. She says this: "My point is simple. Adults will have negative opinions about you and everything you do. Let them judge. Let them react. Let them doubt you. Let them question the decisions you are making. Let them be wrong about you. Let them roll their eyes when you start posting videos online or you want to rewrite the manuscript for the 12th time. Instead of wasting your time worrying about them, start living your life in a way that makes you proud of yourself. Let me do what I want to do with my one wild and precious life." Let that absorb. I'm going to read you another one that I wanted to build off of that. She goes on in another one of her books. She says, "That's the problem with so many adults. We're focused on getting it perfect instead of trying. Whatever happened to good enough?" She's very motivational, very centered on this, right? She, tries to push people away from hesitation. She goes on to say, but also accepting challenges. She goes on to say, if you only ever did the things you don't want to do, you'd have everything you ever wanted. You're one decision away from a completely different life. Some of these things, isolated, just reading them as quotes, I'm very picky about my motivational books if I read them at all. So I understand how they seem like something that you might see on a Facebook post, a text post that your grandma posted, right? And you're like, girl, what are you talking about? Sure, you're one decision away from a completely different life. That's just what you say, but it's much more difficult than that. I recognize that. I want to take a second to validate that because I know a lot of self-help things I think can feel very, almost like they're speaking down to you in a way, but can also feel very oversimplified and like they don't, like you're like, wow, sure, that's nice for you, but I could never do that. I think a lot of people feel that way. So I'm just trying to add my thing into the pot, just because we need one more take, don't we? We need one more person just telling us how to be. I'm an expert by no means. I'm just sharing my piece because someone might think similar to me out there. Okay? Let's open up the conversation, just get you thinking about it so that you can decide for yourself. My thoughts here, I really think that first quote are pretty much sums it up, and the Let Them theory as a whole very much sums it up. And I've only just started listening to this book. My friends and my family members have actually completely finished this book and are like begging me to read it. And I will say that at first I didn't like have a fire up under me to read it just because I felt like that's how I live my life already, basically by just not caring. So I was like, yeah, duh, let them. That seems so simple. But of course, she does really develop this and apply it to specific situations that ends up being very helpful. I will give her that, okay? Essentially, my sort of philosophy here is that it takes a lot of energy to perform. And I ask people to think about the times that they perform. And we talk about this in communications classes a bit, where you do this every day. You probably do this multiple times a day. You might have heard the term code switching before, which can refer specifically to Black communities and the switching of AAVE, using AAVE in maybe certain scenarios and not using it in other scenarios. However, in communications, it also just generally applies to the altering of your vocabulary or cadence or tone in different scenarios. So people who work in corporate workspaces will code switch as well. They'll code switch when they go into a meeting with their supervisor, and they'll code switch when they come back home. So you use different tones of voices. You carry yourself differently in these two settings, right? To me, these are performances. Now, not every time that you find yourself in one of these moments is that inherently negative. At work, you have to code switch. You have to perform. It's your job. There are things that are expected of you. If you have a front-facing job where you speak to customers, you are going to have to speak in a certain way. You're going to have to deliver ideas in a way that works for them. You're going to have to carry yourself in a certain way that represents the image of your company or the image of yourself, right? So those are not necessarily bad things. However, it leaks into almost everything we do. And I feel like it's almost, my personal opinion, is that it's almost an unspoken expectation. And I think that it's collectively like self-imposed. And by that, I mean that almost every single person is like self-imposing this upon themselves. And so because like every single person is doing this, it makes it feel like it's an expectation from other people or an expectation from society to perform in these different scenarios. Makes it feel like it's something you have to do. We kind of get lost in translation a little bit, I think. So ask yourself, how many times a day do you find yourself performing? And there are going to be times where you feel like you do enjoy it, or you're doing it for a reason, or it is your choice. But a few years ago, I realized that the people around me and me were doing it a lot. And it wasn't maybe causing a bunch of negative issues. I don't think that it's causing people to be unhappy at all. I do think that it is holding people back from a higher potential and more possibilities for happiness and confidence and fulfillment, which I think is sort of where Mel Robbins leads in some of her books. And so I noticed that a lot of the people in my community and me were performing pretty often. Fitting in is really important, especially when you're younger. It's connected to survival. You want to have a community around you. It helps you feel safe. And so, not being weird, not being the weird kid, not sticking out, that's pretty important, right? And I was the weird kid when I was a kid. So I started to assimilate in a positive way. Just naturally this happened. And it was not a conscious effort on my part. It was not me attempting to fit in. It just happened as my peers and I grew up together and got more mature. But then it was a bit of a push and pull of I've realized that I'm a different person than I was when I didn't fit in. And it seems like the goalposts are kind of moving again. They keep moving. Now there's something new I need to do to fit in. And I maybe don't want to fit in, or maybe I don't want to do those things. Maybe I just want to be, because that's how I think about everybody else in my life. And luckily, I am very lucky and privileged just that I just have very much black and white thinking when it comes to things like this. So I know that my perspective is very different and has allowed me to have a bit of a different process here. So that is one thing I am thankful for, and I know that is different from other people's journeys here, for sure. Being neurodivergent will do that to you. It can be helpful sometimes. But I started to notice that, right? And I'm sure that we have all felt this way, and that sometimes there are people or communities or spaces where you'll sacrifice something to fit in or to be accepted. And as soon as you begin to sacrifice things, aspects of yourself, your values, it can be even deeper than that, literally your morals, you're going to have to keep sacrificing things. It's kind of like how in a toxic relationship, if you let somebody get away with treating you badly one time and don't have any repercussions or speak about it, they're just going to keep doing it. There's nothing stopping them, So it gets to a point where it can be pretty overwhelming. And I think firstly, thinking about, when in my daily life when I say that I'm performing, and marking all the times when you switch throughout the day, in this class or at my work, and then I go to the bar with these people, and then I go to my sorority, and then I go to my house and watch a movie with these people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what are the times, and I think that because we are human beings and we contain multitudes, there are going to be moments, right, in each of these things, in each of these versions of yourself that are you. That's why you keep going back to all of these places. That's why you switch. You do the performance, and we code switch, and we have all of these spaces that we exist in, our school and our work and my rehearsals and my camp friends and my theater friends and my hometown friends and my music friends, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So instead of only allowing these like sides of yourself to come out in these individual moments, the goal would be to constantly be all of these people. And that sounds like I'm saying something that's really exhausting, and that's definitely not how I mean it. So I'm going to continue to develop this like throughout these talk breaks. But recognizing when the times are that you do feel like you're being completely true to yourself. And if you're not there yet to have that level of introspection, I genuinely think that like journaling was the best thing ever. And I talk to myself a lot. I do like a audio journal just because it's easier for me. I do like video journals, which is like video diaries, which is crazy, but that's like a me thing. So, you know, a Snapchat story, literally anything. I have this podcast. And talking these things through with yourself and like spending a lot of alone time with yourself and not being afraid of that. If you guys have ever listened to Brittany Broski, she talks a lot about this, about like how you have to know yourself and love yourself and be able to be alone and keep yourself company and enjoy it and like relish in it. Then you'll start to realize like the moments where you feel the most yourself and how to create them as well. And that's like how you build self-confidence, because it can be hard to think, oh, if I'm hanging out around this group, right? And I want to this aspect of myself that I really like when I'm hanging out at work. I really like that part of me. I feel like that's, for instance, let's say, my leadership when I'm at work. This is just an example. I like how, I feel like I'm really myself when I immediately take responsibilities like really quickly. And I'm the first one to volunteer. And that feels like something that like makes me feel really good, makes me feel proud of myself, makes me feel like I'm just doing something I was meant to do, not because it's my job, not because someone wanted me to do it, just because that is just my choice and it makes me feel good about myself. So I really like that part of myself. Well, I'm worried that what if I bring that side of me to my theater friends, my major friends in my classes, and in my classes I'm usually like the thing that I like about myself is like how funny I am. Like I can really make people laugh and bring joy and make them like not stress because I know that everything's going to be okay if I just trust in my skills at school. Then there's no reason to stress about this assignment. We'll just work hard and we'll get it done and we don't need to worry. So I'm worried if I bring in this other side now and I combine these two things, what if my work friends are caught off guard by my like stress-free, joyous attitude? And what if my classmates are caught off guard by and think that I'm being pushy when I try to show this leadership side? So I think that is pretty common, but this is where the like anxiety thing comes in of like, I don't know if your parents ever told you this, but if you remember when we were like in high school or middle school and it would be Spirit Week and you were like terrified to get out the car because you didn't know if anybody else was going to be wearing their pajamas on pajama day. And even though everybody knows it's pajama day and like they've been reminding you that it's Spirit Week for like 3 months, like, but what if everybody decided not to wear pajamas and you're the only one who wore pajamas and then you look crazy and you look stupid? And what if I'm like walking the hallway? Y'all know that stuff? Whenever I would get to that like self-conscious of like, well, what if people think this about what I wear? And what if da-da-da-da-da? My mom, and this is like sounds harsh, but I'm sure y'all have had this said to you before. The one thing that like you literally have to say to yourself or other people if they're experiencing this, the only thing to say is nobody cares about you that much, which sounds so crazy. But the truth is that people are so, we're also worried about ourselves. We're way too worried about ourselves to notice how somebody else is behaving. There's exceptions to the rule, for sure. And that's going to be like, if somebody's acting completely inappropriate in a social setting, obviously people notice, right? But you're not going to do that. Being yourself is not going to do that, okay? Because you're just being yourself. So what actually happens, and what in my experience has happened, is like now that it's not really a conscious thought for me, and I think that it's not a conscious thought for anyone. Does that make sense? I don't think that first you teach yourself how to do this and then you have to really think about it. You have to say, I'm going to be myself and I'm going to be confident today and this is how I'm going to do that. You just have to let it happen, like release control over people's thoughts of you. And in those moments when I'm just like literally not thinking about that at all, people are like, that's when people are like, wow, like, you seem like, you've never had trouble fitting in. Like, you just seem like you're so, like, happy-go-lucky all the time. Like, it's so cool. Like, how did you, like, how'd you get there and what? And I have to be like, huh? Wait, what? What did you say? I'm confused. You think it's not hard? So it's really an unconscious thought. You're the only person who's thinking about how people are going to react. And if somebody reacts negatively, ready, Mel Robbins? What did she say? Let them. Just let them. You're the only one panicking, So that's my first spiel on that. I'm going to take a rest. I'm going to come back to it. We're going to listen to some new music, some more Panic at the Disco really quickly. I'm going to come back. Yes. That's all I have for this one. It's a long and complicated process, and it's kind of silly, I know, to try to turn it into a life lesson when it's like, okay, just be yourself and don't care. Like, I recognize. But, hey, it's what I wanted to talk about this week, and it's my show, so, yeah. All right, let's listen to some music. Give me a break from speaking so I can drink some water. We're going to listen to Kim Ware and the Good Graces. This is a new one for me with Sign Said Caution. I'm hoping for some Riot Girl vibes. I don't know yet. But that's what I'm hoping for, followed by some more acoustic. I've got hella acoustics today. Panic at the Disco, New Perspective, acoustic version.
Me up, I'm getting out of here. Whoa. Whoa.
And we're back. What a falsetto. Like, he can sing. Also, I was wrong. That was not giving Riot Girl, but it was giving something. I kind of enjoyed it. All right. I've got a few more quotes, a few more closing arguments here. We're going to keep listening to some songs. Let me show y'all this quote. Okay. Really quickly. This is another one from Mel Robbins. This is from the 5-second rule. I just want to keep giving you more of these to think about in case they work better than my crazy words that I'm saying. She says, we're also afraid of uncertainty, that we want a guarantee before we even try. We want evidence that if we take a risk, we will get the girl. It's a numbers game. To play any game, you have to start. My teacher always used to say that starting's the hardest part. He's right. To win, you need to keep going. If you want to make your dreams come true, get ready for the long game. Life is not a one and done sort of deal. You've got to work for what you want. Success is a numbers game. You're not going to win if you keep telling yourself to wait. The more often that you choose courage, the more likely you'll succeed. And so to that, obviously, we can apply this to anything in life, your job, your risks that you want to take, achievements that you're trying to have that you're scared to start because you don't want to mess them up. Right? That can literally apply to anything. But I want to talk about the courage in terms of just being fearless, in terms of being yourself. That is the number one thing that I think is the key, is the idea of being fearless. We live in a time online today where anyone can say their opinion literally within seconds. That's what I'm doing right now. I have a whole show about it. I get borderline paid to do that. A lot of people get paid to do that, actually. We live in an information super bloom, basically. You can find any opinion, any stance, any niche within seconds if you search the right thing on TikTok, right? On YouTube, on Instagram, whatever. You can find somebody to confirm something you believe. You can find somebody to go against something you believe. You can find something completely new. Anything you want. What this has done, has built some confidence in people, I will say. I'm a big defender of social media, but I think that the main downfall here in this immediate access to information and opinions, which I've talked about before, another side of it that comes along with these parasocial things that are spreading really far into our society. And I am actually currently reading a book about that, which I'm sure I'll end up doing a show on. But what I want to talk about instead is just the swiftness with which people can make comments and I'm almost literally exclusively referring to literally comments on posts. People can hide behind a computer, behind a fake account, behind a fake opinion. There is nothing confirming or denying any of this. Most of the people you see online, you have no idea if they actually believe this stuff, right? And so if y'all remember back in COVID, there were these things called fairy comments. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Where people were subtly bullying people online, but making them jokes, finger quotes, because they put like funny flowery emojis next to them. To me, this was the start of this basically downfall, where now we live in an age where if you make a video or comment on a post saying, oh, my favorite movie is Zootopia, my favorite song is You Belong With Me, whatever. If you go online and say, these are my things that I like, this is what brings me joy in life, instead of other like-minded people, which you will get some of, and if you keep working at it, hopefully you will get exclusively those people. But the majority of people are going to instead find your content just to disagree. Disagreeing and hating, and I'm not talking politically, I'm not literally anything like that. Just in general, you saying my favorite band is blank. I sometimes like to listen to Taylor Swift, right? That is inviting other people to disagree and to hate. And it's easy to do it. We've even come to the point where we think it's funny to do it, to tear down what somebody else is finding joy in, even though it's literally hurting nobody and doesn't change anything about the things that we like. It's so much easier and funnier to just rip it down immediately. And now we have these comments that are like, subtly rude. Is he acoustic? Things like that. We've made it into a joke. But the problem is that the more that we make these jokes, the more it slips into our everyday lives and the more serious it becomes. After a while, it's not a joke anymore. After a while, you mean what you're commenting. You're commenting it because you think it's funny to tear this person down. When what they have done is the most brave thing you can do, which is to stand up in any space, online or otherwise, and stand 10 toes down in who you are, in a thing that you like, in something you believe in. And I obviously have a problem with that. It upsets me. So I think we need to move away from that, We should not be afraid online or in person to take a stance, to be able to stand up and say that you enjoy something, that you like something. Especially women, I think we get a lot of shade for liking traditionally female things, especially young women, teenagers and young adults. It's really hard to find communal spaces now, traditionally feminine things, romance books, boy bands, Taylor Swift, et cetera, clothing, et cetera, are torn down quite a lot. And seen as like less valid ways of spending your time, when these are just genuinely things that you enjoy, things that can build community. And instead of using them to build community, we are using them to separate people. And hey, that could be a whole other podcast episode, but that's not what that's not where I'm really trying to go here. But just a note, if we all, starting with ourselves, and as we do this for ourselves, giving grace to other people to allow them to get there is really important, because if you put in all this work to become confident in yourself, to use the let them theory, right? To say, I'm just going to be my absolute most authentic self. If I get invited somewhere and I'm just not feeling like going, I'm not going to go. If my friends say something shady or want me to do something to fit in with some guys they're hanging out with, I'm going to tell them it's shady, or I'm going to say, yeah, sorry, I'm not doing that. You guys have fun. I'm good as I am. If there's a moment at work where I had the choice between, being my authentic self or going with the flow to try to fit in and avoid possible conflict, I'm going to choose to be myself, right? And what it does is over time creates trust between you and yourself, if that makes sense. And so then, you won't have to think about it anymore. It won't be a choice. You can just do it. You can just give yourself permission to be your absolute self 110% of the time. And you feel, I think, much happier, much more well-rested, And it will even help you, pursue your relationships authentically and your friendships. I think that too. And as you're doing this, it's important to then also, because, not everybody is doing this. So there are some people who are going to be upset with you for being secure in yourself and prioritizing your confidence and your personal likes and dislikes and values, who are going to be upset because that kind of makes their life difficult because they expect you to maybe go with the flow or dress a certain way or do your hair a certain way or do your makeup a certain way. And you have to have sympathy for these people because, the hope is that one day everybody will just choose to just be themselves and choose to not engage in fakeness and engage in performances and masking and all of these things that we currently do. I hope that kind of tied things together. I'm going to end with another Mel Robbins quote here. This one kind of explains how even though it's going to be hard to do these things, because again, like we said, there are still going to be those people who respond negatively. And there are going to be days where you can't do this. There are going to be days where you're like, bro, I literally just have no energy for actually anything. And then you still got to go to work. You still got to go to rehearsal. You still got to go to school. But I find that even on those low days, if I let people, show me that they see me, and if I remember that I do always show up authentically, it helps. And so some days I might be feeling really down on myself and think that I don't have the energy or that I haven't been doing a good job, showing up, being myself, and be ashamed of who I am showing up as that day. But then, in a positive side of the let them theory, right? People will still come up to me and engage in these really energetic conversations, really emotional conversations. They'll hype up my outfits. They'll hype up my hair. And I'll remember that, like we talked about last week, actually, that I'm always myself. That I trust myself. I've invested this time into myself, and I am confident, and I am, the person that I believe I am in my wildest dreams. And that's helpful. So this quote is about in those moments where you're not feeling so proud of yourself, or people are making you feel not so proud of yourself. So she says, that's one of my biggest takeaways from using the let them theory. You'll never be able to control what is happening around you. You'll also never be able to control your emotional responses because they're automatic, just like how your stress response turns on automatically. But you can always choose what you think, say, or do in response to other people, the world around you, or the emotions that are rising up inside of you. That's the source of all your power. That's the end of the quote. But the source of all your power is your autonomy, is your choice. Because no one else, no amount of closeness, no amount of Googling, no amount of TikTok advice, no amount of podcasts, none of it can make your choices for you. So isn't it so much more fulfilling? And isn't it so much more validating to make choices that benefit who you truly are, that benefit you at your core, that benefit the things that you want out of your life and the things that you want for yourself? Right? Let's listen to a song, and then I'm going to close you out. Let's hear the Happy Fits with Everything You Do. I'll let you sit with that for a minute. All right. That was the Happy Fits. What a song. So fun. Such a jam, honestly. All right, let's close it out, y'all. Today, we had a great conversation, I feel like, about being yourself and choosing yourself and, figuring out when are moments when you're not really being yourself and how can you put more of yourself into those moments. That way you feel more authentic. That way you get more out of them. I'm going to close with one last quote because it just feels right. So, again, the let them theory, Mel Robbins, right? In order to make a change, a person must be able to separate themselves from the pain they will feel in the moment and the action that they need to take. And I feel like that's a good one to end on just because I want to assuage some of the fear involved, right? It's scary to think about that. How much is going to change? Am I going to lose friends, community members, place in my job? If you really are at that level where you really are performing every day and it's truly exhausting you, because it does exhaust you, what will happen if I make this drastic change, start prioritizing myself? Because unfortunately, most people don't prioritize themselves. Most people prioritize their friends, their family, all these other people. And then it can be really hard when you start to prioritize yourself and you lose relationships because of it. So the thing that you have to do is literally, like it says, separating the pain and the fear and the, possible hurt from the fact that this is something you need to do. No matter how scared you are, no matter how difficult the process is going to be, that need is always going to be there. The need for that action that you're trying to take, in this instance, instilling more self-confidence and being yourself, being your true self, not being afraid what people think, dyeing your hair, doing crazy things, whatever you want, right? Is always going to be there. It's only going to get worse the longer that you find excuses not to do that. And the positives that are on the other side of that challenge, bro, are abundance, are immense, are enormous. And they're waiting. It's like a giant orchard, just beyond the mountain. It's like waiting for the fruits to be reaped, bro. Like, they're there. If you just make the choice. So, this is me instilling my confidence in you to make the choice. There's always going to be hard days, like we talked about. But, let people show you who they are. And let people live their own lives. And do not worry about what they're going to think about your choices. And do not let that instill fear in you to the point where it prohibits you to take this action that you need to take. And supporting this need that's inside of you to be your most authentic self. So yes, that's all I have for you today. I'm going to close out with some really good songs for y'all. I hope you enjoyed my show. Later at 4 o'clock, we got Ian with Aboard the Bebop. If you continue listening to WZMB 91.3, this was my show, It's a Bee Thing. And my name is Bryce. I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to the State Fair this weekend. It's this weekend and next weekend. I'm going to be filming some content for the radio station. If you follow us on Instagram or YouTube, you can check it out. Might even post it on my personal page, where I also post full uncut versions of these shows. Well, without the music, if you just want to listen to me talk, on my YouTube and my Instagram. So, yes, and my YouTube and Instagram are called Lime.Sorbet. Easy to find because it's a crazy name. All right, y'all have a good weekend. I had a great week this week. I hope it continues into the weekend. I'm super excited for Halloween. I will see you for my show next week. Let's close out. We've got Paris with the acoustic version of My House, because y'all know I'm on the acoustic grind today. And one of the greatest songs of all time, Panic at the Disco with Northern Downpour. Enjoy these. Stay in the car to finish them out, if you will. All right? I'll see y'all next week.